Objectification is defined as the act of degrading someone to the status of a mere object. I think it goes without saying that a lot of people have a lot of feelings about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Some of these feelings I think are justified, and some not so much. But one thing that I think this game does better than most other games I've played in recent memory is how it marries its essential gameplay mechanics with the story it's trying to tell, and more specifically, how the world of Alrest, and by extension we as the players, treat the blades in the game. Now, if you're watching this video and you haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 yet, I will be discussing spoilers from the game, so if you want to go into it fully blind and you haven't played it yet, it would probably be for the best if you clicked away now. So, this is your warning. Alright, so first, I think we need to address one of the most controversial elements of the game, and that is the fact that there is a gacha mechanic that you need to engage with prior to obtaining any new blades. And just in case you need a refresher, blades are a race of weaponized life forms that are linked to a driver, with the driver being an individual who creates and summons them by resonating with their core crystals. Through this resonation process, blades grant their drivers with special powers and weapons that are dependent on the blades themselves and their specialties. You can kind of think of them as granting the driver a character class, with each blade having their own strengths and weaknesses. Now in Xenoblade 2, there are quite literally countless possibilities for the kinds of blades you will be able to resonate with through these core crystals, with these blades being given the designations of common, rare, or legendary. Unfortunately though, there's not much love for common blades amongst the player base of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, with everyone being much more focused on using and finding rare or legendary blades. This creates an interesting dynamic, however, because while legendary blades can only be found throughout the course of the game's main story, rare blades and common blades must be obtained through the gacha mechanic, with you using your party to resonate with an innumerable amount of core crystals in hopes that you will find rare blades that you can equip to your drivers like Rex and Nia. The stronger the blade, the more use you will get out of them, and as you progress through the game, you will get more and more rare or legendary blades, and therefore, you'll be less and less likely to use the common blades for anything except very occasionally their field abilities, so that they can help you to get past some roadblock that you hadn't prepared for. This is interesting because throughout the course of the narrative, it's not too far of a stretch to say that blades, by many people, are not seen as equals, but as tools or slaves to their drivers. And while Rex and the rest of the party clearly and vehemently oppose this view and strive for a world in which blades and the general population can stand shoulder to shoulder as equals, this just isn't the reality of the world that they live in at this time. I think that this is best represented by what we discover in the Indoline Praetorium, in which we see refugee camps set beneath the Praetorium itself, in which refugees blame blades for their misfortune, and we come to learn that the Praetorium is actually in full control of the distribution of core crystals across all of Alrest. Now, I don't know about you, but when I found out that the Praetorium controlled this distribution, it made me raise my eyebrows. It's almost as though these blades are seen as commodities, or more simply put, they're tools. I mean, for most blades, their memories and their very existence is tied to the lives of their drivers. If their driver dies, they simply go back into their core crystals, lose their memories, start fresh with a new driver, and repeat this process over and over again until they eventually become titans and start creating their own core crystals to start this cycle anew for other blades. The death of a driver more or less initiates a factory reset, and since they're trapped in their core crystals and they don't have the memories of their past, it's not too much of a stretch for the people of Alrest to think it doesn't make much of a difference when they get awakened again, because it's like nothing had ever happened for them. Of course, we as the players know that this is a terrible way to think about these things, though. We are able to root for blades like Brigid, who keeps a diary so that she can maintain her memories of her past, and we can feel sympathy for blades like Jin, who quite literally ate his driver Laura's heart to become a flesh eater in order to not go back into his core crystal so that he can retain his memories of the driver he cared about so profoundly. We as the player aren't like the citizens of Alrest who treat blades as lesser beings or parasites. We see them for who they really are. That's why it feels so good to go on the quest for all of the different blades that we collect in the game, like Boreas, Percival, or Godfrey, so that we can begin understanding who these blades are at a deeper level instead of simply seeing them for their abilities and their skill sets. Nothing is better than resonating with the core crystal and meeting a new blade like... Oh god. Okay, hold on. Let me just open up some more of these, and I think my blade inventory is almost full, so let me get rid of some of these useless commons so that I can have more room for the good ones. Oh shit. Yeah, so the gacha mechanic, whether intentionally or not, really illustrates to us as the players that, for right or for wrong, not all blades are created equally. Yeah, sure, we might use some common blades for a while during our first playthrough, but the second that we're able to replace them with rare or legendary blades, I think there are very few situations in which players wouldn't do that. And while from a gameplay perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with this, I do think, though, it's interesting that we are able to very clearly look at rare and legendary blades and see their value in the world of Alrest. The death of Haze still stings thinking back on it, but then I think about how many blades I've just thoughtlessly discarded because they didn't provide any tangible value for me in my playthrough because they were either too weak for combat, didn't have good enough field abilities, or maybe they were fine and there were just other blades that simply looked cooler and did their jobs better. We will resonate with crystal after crystal over and over and over again, just hoping for a rare blade, just kind of accepting that we'll have to throw some of the commons away eventually because when it comes down to it, they're disposable. If development time were unlimited and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 wasn't constrained by the fact that it is in fact a game, I think it would be fair to say that canonically, some of the common blades would be just as unique in personality as their rare counterparts. We just don't get to see that. They are entirely defined by whether they're helpful or not. And most of the time, unfortunately, they're not. So with this in mind, we as the players aren't so far removed from Praetor Amalthus, who seeks to control drivers and their blades, ensuring that all drivers are registered through the Praetorium, and they control the distribution of blades, which blades are able to be out in the world, and which need to be sequestered away for a while, and who knows when they will see the light of day again, because it doesn't matter too much. I mean, they're in their core crystals, who cares? Suddenly, the gacha mechanic makes sense, because now we as the player have to ascribe value to our blades. While many appear based on stats or appearance to be better than the common blades, we have the choice, however easy it may seem, to ensure this value is actually ascribed to them. Yes, I think it goes without saying that most people would want to use Pyra over a random common blade, but throwing that random common blade whose name we probably don't even remember the second after we throw it away because he's not the most useful, now taking into consideration that he is a sentient being just like Pyra, feels kind of wrong. And I wish that had been more readily acknowledged in the game. And speaking of Pyra, I think I need to address what I'm sure most of the people assume this video would be about in its entirety when they clicked on it, and that's the blades designs themselves. Now, I don't want to put words into the mouths of the developers, so instead I'm just going to share my own personal interpretation of why blades are designed in the way that they are. Because in my opinion, we have three kinds of rare and legendary blades. The cool looking blades, the wholesome looking blades, and the blades that were designed specifically to make social media hate them with a burning passion. And in turn, I think all three kinds of designs lend themselves to this idea of blades being objectified just for existing before anyone even knows anything about them. We as humans, whether for good or for bad, make snap judgments the moment we see something. I think it's fair to say that many people see Pyra and Mithra's designs as being too sexualized or over the top, which has in turn led them to dismiss the game and these characters before giving them a chance, solely based on their appearance. And I can definitely lump myself into that category, as it took me several years to justify playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the first time. And when I did, I was pleasantly surprised surprised by the fact that their designs weren't even really commented on outside of a few stupid jokes throughout the course of the game. They just are what they are, and they're very well written and dynamic characters, though I'm sure a lot of people can't get past their designs. Now, this isn't me going to bat for these character designs, because ultimately I do think that these designs detract from the game more than they give to it, because it has pushed so many people away before they even give it a chance. But I do think it's interesting how this idea of objectification is so all-encompassing throughout the game, as it presents itself narratively through the gameplay, and even to an extent on a meta-narrative kind of way through the presence of the designs of the blades, whether it's a character like Pyra or a big cute Baymax looking oaf like Boreas. Because it's easy for us as the players to see these blades more superficially than actually taking the time to get to know them throughout the course of the game. For characters like Boreas, you might not have ever even interacted or even known that there was a character quest associated with him that allows you to get to know him better. Instead, he was a tool that you were able to control throughout the course of the game. It kind of reminds me of that performance art, Rhythm Zero, where the artist, Marina Abramovich, placed 72 objects on a table next to her and stood motionless for 6 hours. And amongst those objects, there were scissors, a gun, a bullet, and a wide variety of other things. And she just stood there to see what people would do. And while there is good in this world, she also found that there was a lot of people that, because she was motionless and because she would not fight back or react in any way through this piece of performance art, it really brought out the worst in humanity and illustrated just how cruel and horrible, if given the opportunity, people would be, with her even saying that she was ready to die in this performance. To these people, they got into their heads that essentially, she was no longer a human. She was just an object. And I don't think that's dissimilar from blades. Yes, if you think about it, of course blades are sentient beings with their own thoughts, aspirations, and hopes. And regardless of how despicable it might be, I think that their designs acknowledge this, whether it is them being hypersexualized or maybe it's because they look like a teddy bear. So many players and so many of the citizens of Alrest will see them as objects for their utility or their desire, and they will project those desires onto the blades, even if that's fully out of line and even if those desires don't make sense whatsoever with the blade's personality or how they carry themselves through the world of Alrest. And ultimately, the same could be said about a lot of different JRPGs. And I do have to give Xenoblade credit that you can use some of the blades that are just kind of rotting in your menu to be able to go out on missions and still have some bearing and some usefulness on the gameplay. But the fact of the matter is, if you play the game long enough, your inventory for blades will fill up. And eventually, if you want to keep getting more rare blades, you will have to discard some. And so the next time you're deleting a common blade in favor of trying for a rare blade, just remember, even though there's nothing wrong with doing that, because it is a game, I hope this video makes you remember that, at least in universe, it's a pretty hypocritical thing to do, and you have to live with that now. And so I hope that eats at you like it eats at me. Have fun. But that'll do it for this week's video, guys, and I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on Xenoblade Chronicles 2? Do you think they lean into this idea of objectification in a good way? Do you just not resonate with the game in general? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. While you're down there, why not liking the video, why not subscribing to the channel, why not even ringing that notification bell so you never miss another upload? And do you like me doing some of these, more off-the-wall kind of random videos where we just take a topic from a game and dive into it? Let me know your thoughts. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, a fantastic rest of your week, and why not even a fantastic rest of your month. And I will see you in the next video. Later.